I want to pause here. I made the decision to check our joint account one last time before my wife and I closed on the lake house. We'd been dreaming about that place for 35 years, ever since we drove past it on our honeymoon. But when the bank teller's face went pale and she excused herself to get the manager, I knew something was terribly wrong. The manager, a young woman named Patricia who couldn't have been more than 30, asked me to step into her office. The way she closed the door, the way she folded her hands on the desk, I'd seen that body language 1,000 times during my years as a detective. She was about to deliver bad news. "Mr. Hartley," she said carefully, "I'm showing a balance of $317 in your joint savings account." I laughed. It was absurd. That's impossible. There should be $485,000 in that account. We've been saving for 35 years. Patricia turned her monitor toward me. There it was, in black and white, $317. And above it, a long list of wire transfers. 12 transfers over the past 8 months, each one draining chunks of our life savings. The largest was $95,000. The most recent was just 2 weeks ago. Who authorized these? My voice sounded strange in my own ears. According to our records, these were all initiated by Margaret Hartley, your wife. I want you to understand something about Margaret. We met when I was 28, fresh out of the police academy, cocky as hell, and twice as stupid. She was a paralegal at a law firm, smart, beautiful, with this laugh that could light up a room. She believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. When I made detective at 32, she threw me a surprise party. When I got shot in the line of duty at 41, she never left my hospital room for 3 days. We built a life together, raised 2 kids, Michael and Sarah, survived my crazy hours, the nightmares from bad cases, the strain that police work puts on a marriage. When I finally retired at 60 with my pension and our savings, we were supposed to start the good part, travel, the lake house, grandkids someday. That's what I thought I knew about my wife. "I need to see the transfer authorizations," I said. My detective instincts were kicking in, even though my heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Patricia printed them out. Each transfer had Margaret's electronic signature. Each one had been sent to the same account, an LLC called Hartley Financial Holdings. The account owner was listed as Dennis Crawford. Dennis, my brother-in-law, Margaret's younger brother. I drove home in a fog. Our house, the one we'd bought 32 years ago when Michael was born, looked the same as always. Red brick, white shutters, Margaret's rose garden that she fussed over every weekend. Her car was in the driveway, a Honda SUV we'd bought outright 3 years ago because we didn't believe in car payments. I sat in my truck for 10 minutes, trying to figure out what to ask, how to ask it. In my career, I'd interrogated hundreds of people, murderers, thieves, abusers, but I'd never had to interrogate my own wife. She was in the kitchen when I came in, making her famous pot roast. The smell hit me garlic, rosemary, the same meal she'd made every Thursday for 35 years. "You're home early," she said, smiling. She came over and kissed my cheek. "I thought you were meeting with the realtor about the lake house." I went to the bank instead. Something flickered in her eyes. Just for a second. If I hadn't spent 30 years reading people, I might have missed it. "Oh? Is everything okay with the closing?" "You tell me, Margaret. You tell me where $485,000 went." The color drained from her face. The wooden spoon she was holding clattered to the floor. "Robert, I can explain. Explain how you stole our retirement. Explain how you transferred our life savings to your brother. Go ahead. I'm listening." She sank into a chair. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. Then, Dennis needed help. Dennis needed $500,000? He had an opportunity. A real estate investment. He just needed capital to get started, and then we'd get everything back plus returns. He promised. "Robert." He showed me the projections. "Dennis is a financial advisor, Margaret. He should have his own capital. He should have investors. Why did he need our money?" She looked away. "He got into some trouble, made some bad investments with client funds. He was going to lose his license, maybe face criminal charges. This deal was supposed to fix everything. I felt like I was falling. How long have you known? 6 months. 6 months. You've been lying to me for 6 months. I wasn't lying. I didn't want to worry you until Dennis sorted it out. Does the money still exist? Her silence was answer enough. I spent that night in a hotel. Not because Margaret asked me to leave, she begged me to stay, actually. Crying, apologizing, saying she'd been stupid and scared. But I couldn't look at her. 35 years of marriage. And I couldn't stand to be in the same room with her. At the hotel, I did what I'd done for 30 years when faced with a crime. I investigated. I logged into our online banking, thank God I'd never given up access, and downloaded every transaction for the past year. Then I started digging into Dennis Crawford. Dennis had always been a problem. Even when Margaret and I first started dating, her family would make excuses for him. Dennis is just finding himself. Dennis has big dreams. What they meant was Dennis was a screw-up who couldn't hold a job and had a gambling problem. But 5 years ago, somehow, Dennis had gotten licensed as a financial advisor. Margaret was so proud. Her little brother had finally made something of himself. I was skeptical. Leopards don't change their spots, but I kept my mouth shut for her sake. Now I pulled up Dennis's professional records. He'd worked at 3 different firms in 5 years. That was a red flag. I called a buddy of mine who worked white-collar crime. Robert Hartley. Tom laughed when he answered. Thought you retired. I did. This is personal. You know anything about a financial advisor named Dennis Crawford? Hold on, I heard typing. Yeah, we've got a file on him. Nothing actionable yet, but he's been flagged. Couple of his former clients filed complaints about unauthorized trades. SEC is sniffing around. Why? He's my brother-in-law, and I think he just stole my retirement. Tom whistled. How much? $485,000. Jesus, Robert. You need to file a report. I can connect you with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. Not yet. I need to know where the money went first. I spent the next week living in that hotel room, building my case. I requested documents from the bank. I pulled Dennis's business filings for Hartley Financial Holdings. I tracked down 2 of his former clients who'd filed complaints and interviewed them. The picture that emerged was damning. Dennis had been running a Ponzi scheme. Not a sophisticated one, he was too stupid for that, but effective enough. He'd take money from new clients, promise fantastic returns, then use that money to pay off earlier investors. Classic pyramid. It worked as long as new money kept coming in. But 6 months ago, it started collapsing. Clients were pulling out. The SEC was investigating. Dennis was facing federal charges and financial ruin. So he convinced my wife, his own sister, to bail him out with our life savings. The kicker? He'd already lost it. Gambled some of it away, used the rest, trying to cover his tracks with the SEC. The money was gone. Margaret called me every day. I didn't answer. She sent texts. Please come home. I'm so sorry. I'll make this right. On day 8, Michael called me. My son, 32 years old, married with a 2-year-old daughter I adored. Dad, what the hell is going on? Mom is falling apart. Did she tell you what she did? She said there was a misunderstanding about money. She stole our retirement and gave it to Uncle Dennis. Almost $500,000. Gone. Michael was quiet for a long time. Holy shit. Yeah. What are you going to do? Good question. What was I going to do? I could file for divorce. At 63, start over. Split what little we had left. Live on my pension alone. Watch the lake house dream die. Or I could try to fix this. I'm a problem solver. Always have been. When I was a detective, I didn't just catch criminals. I built cases so airtight that prosecutors loved me. I was methodical, patient, thorough. So I started building a case against Dennis Crawford. I compiled everything. Bank records, wire transfer receipts, emails between Margaret and Dennis that I found on her laptop, statements from Dennis's former clients, SEC complaint documents. I had enough to bury him. Then I did something Margaret didn't expect. I went to see Dennis. He lived in a condo downtown, one of those new buildings with a doorman and a gym, the kind of place that screams, I'm overextended. When I showed up unannounced, he actually looked relieved. Robert, man, I've been meaning to call you. Cut the crap, Dennis. His smile faltered. Look, I know Margaret told you about the investment, And I know it looks bad right now, but it is bad. The money's gone. You gambled it away and used the rest to try to cover up your fraud. That's not, it's more complicated than... I dropped a folder on his coffee table. That's a copy of everything I've compiled. Wire fraud, embezzlement, operating an unlicensed securities business, making false statements to the SEC. You're looking at 20 years federal time, minimum. Dennis went white. You're bluffing. I spent 30 years putting people in prison, Dennis. I know exactly what I'm doing. You wouldn't do that to Margaret. She's my sister. You didn't seem too concerned about your sister when you were stealing her retirement. He collapsed onto his couch. What do you want? Here's what's going to happen. You're going to liquidate every asset you have. This condo, your car, your watch collection, your 401k, everything. You're going to pay back every cent you can. That won't even be $100,000. Then you're going to get a job, a real job, not as a financial advisor, and you're going to pay us back $2,000 a month for the next 20 years. You're going to sign a promissory note, legally binding, with penalty clauses if you miss payments. 20 years? I'll be 70. You should have thought about that before you committed fraud. Oh, and you're going to turn yourself in to the SEC. Cooperate fully. Take whatever plea deal they offer. They'll revoke my license. Your license should be revoked. You're a criminal, Dennis. And if I don't, I tap the folder. Then I take this to the FBI tomorrow, and you can explain to a jury why you stole from your own sister. He signed the promissory note that afternoon. We had it notarized. Within a week, he'd liquidated everything and transferred $92,000 back to our account. The SEC gave him a plea deal, 5 years probation, permanent revocation of his financial licenses, and a $100,000 fine he'd be paying off for the rest of his life. It wasn't enough. We'd still lost almost $400,000. But it was something. Then I had to deal with Margaret. I came home on a Tuesday afternoon. She was in the garden, pulling weeds, her hands dirty. When she saw me, she stood up so fast, she knocked over her bucket of tools. Robert, we need to talk. We sat at the kitchen table. The same table where we'd fed 2 babies, helped with homework, played cards on Friday nights. I recovered $92,000 from Dennis, I said. He's paying back $2,000 a month for the next 20 years. It's not what we lost, but it's what we're going to get. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I know I can't fix this. No, you can't. What you can do is get a job. A job? You haven't worked in 30 years, but you're only 61. You can still work. Paralegal work. Administrative assistant. Something. We need the income if we're ever going to rebuild. Of course, yes. I'll start looking tomorrow. And we're selling this house. She gasped. This is our home. We can't afford it anymore. The mortgage is paid off, so we'll make about $300,000 on the sale. We'll buy something smaller, cheaper, bank the difference. Start rebuilding our retirement. What about the lake house? I looked at her, really looked at her. She'd aged in the past 2 weeks. New lines around her eyes, gray roots showing in her hair. The lake house is gone, Margaret. We'll never have enough now. That dream is dead. She started crying. Big, ugly sobs. Part of me wanted to comfort her. 35 years of instinct, but I stayed in my chair. I need you to understand something, I said. I'm not divorcing you. Not because I forgive you, I don't know if I ever will, but because we made a promise 35 years ago. For better or worse, and because divorcing you would mean splitting what little we have left, and we'd both end up in poverty. I understand. But things are different now. You destroyed my trust. You lied to me for 6 months. You sided with your criminal brother over your husband. That's not something you apologize away. I'll do anything. You'll get a job. You'll help rebuild what you destroyed. And you'll cut Dennis out of your life completely. No contact. Ever. Those are my terms. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Okay. Yes. Whatever you need. I moved back home that night. Separate bedrooms. The next 6 months were hard. Margaret found work as an administrative assistant at a law firm her old paralegal credentials helped. We put the house on the market, and it sold in 3 weeks. We bought a 2-bedroom condo on the other side of town. Smaller, cheaper, but comfortable enough. Sarah, our daughter, was furious when she found out what had happened. She and her mother had a screaming fight over the phone. She didn't speak to Margaret for months. Michael was more forgiving, but I could see the disappointment in his eyes when he looked at his mother. I went to therapy. The therapist, Dr. Chen, was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who didn't let me wallow. "You're angry," she observed during our third session. "Of course I'm angry. My wife stole my retirement. Is that the only thing you're angry about?" I thought about it. I'm angry that she didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth. I'm angry that she chose her brother over me. I'm angry that we'll never have the lake house. What was the lake house to you? Proof that we made it. That we survived 35 years of marriage, raised good kids, and earned something beautiful at the end. And now? Now we're just surviving again. Dr. Chen leaned forward. "Robert, you spent 30 years solving other people's problems. You were a detective. You investigated crimes, caught criminals, brought justice. But you can't investigate your way out of grief." "I'm not grieving. You're grieving the marriage you thought you had, the retirement you planned, the life you imagined. That's real grief, and you need to feel it instead of trying to solve it." She was right. For weeks, I'd been treating this like a case. Gather evidence, confront the suspect, extract restitution. But I hadn't actually dealt with the betrayal. So I let myself grieve. I was angry. I was sad. I felt betrayed and foolish and old. But slowly, something else started to emerge. Margaret was keeping her promises. She went to work every day without complaint. She put her entire paycheck into our joint account. She cut off Dennis completely when he called. She didn't answer. She went to therapy too, separately, and with me. 8 months after it all fell apart, we were in couples counseling, and Dr. Martinez asked Margaret a question. "Why did you do it? Not why you gave Dennis the money, we know he manipulated you. But why didn't you tell Robert?" Margaret looked at me. "Because I was ashamed. Dennis is my brother. I've been making excuses for him my whole life. When he came to me desperate, saying he'd lose everything, I thought I could fix it quietly. I thought I could solve his problem, and Robert would never have to know that my brother was a criminal." "You were protecting Dennis," Dr. Martinez said. "I was protecting my image of Dennis, the version of him I wanted to exist, instead of the version that does exist." It was the most honest thing she'd said since this started. "And now?" I asked. "Now I know my brother is a con artist who doesn't care who he hurts, including his own sister. And I know I almost destroyed my marriage trying to save him. We didn't magically fix everything that day, but it was a turning point. A year after the theft, things were different. We'd settled into the condo. Margaret's job had given her a promotion. She was good at what she did, always had been. We were rebuilding our savings slowly. We'd never have $485,000 again, but we'd have something. Sarah started speaking to her mother again, after Margaret wrote her a long letter taking full responsibility. Michael brought his daughter over every Sunday, and we'd watch her run around the condo, laughing and making a mess. Dennis, as far as I knew, was working construction and paying us $2,000 a month like clockwork. I'd heard through the grapevine that he'd moved in with their mother, who was furious with him. One Saturday, Margaret and I were having coffee on our small balcony when she said, "I saw a listing." "For what?" "A cabin. Not a lake house, but a cabin. In the mountains, about 2 hours from here. It needs work, but it's only $150,000. I looked at her. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I know we'll never have the lake house. But maybe, in a few years, if we save, we could have something. Not what we planned, but something." I thought about it. The lake house had been a symbol of everything we'd worked for. But maybe that was the problem. We'd been so focused on the symbol that we'd forgotten what it was supposed to represent. A place to be together. "Let's keep saving," I said. "And in 2 years, if we're ready, we'll look at it." She smiled. Not the big carefree smile from before all this. A smaller, sadder, more real smile. That evening, I called Sarah. "Hey, Dad?" she answered. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, sweetheart. Everything's okay. I just wanted to tell you that your mom and I are doing better." "Really? Really? We're not back to where we were. Maybe we never will be. But we're building something new. That's good, Dad. I'm glad. Me too. After I hung up, Margaret asked, "What did you tell her?" "The truth. That we're rebuilding." She nodded. "Is that what we're doing?" I thought about the question. About the lake house we'd never have, the money we'd lost, the trust we were slowly reconstructing. "Yeah," I said. "That's what we're doing." It's been 3 years now since I stood in that bank and learned my wife had stolen our retirement. We haven't bought the cabin yet, but our savings account has $120,000 in it. We go to couples therapy once a month. We take walks together in the evenings. We visit our grandkids. Sarah had a baby last year, a boy. I don't trust Margaret the way I used to. Maybe I never will. But I've learned that trust isn't binary. It's not all or nothing. You can trust someone with some things and not others. I trust that Margaret won't betray me again because she knows what it cost us. I trust that she's genuinely remorseful. I trust that she's committed to rebuilding what she broke. And some days, that's enough. Some days, I still get angry. I'll see an article about retirement planning or a photo of a lake house, and I'll feel that old rage bubbling up. But it's less frequent now, less consuming. Dennis made his final payment last month, 20 years of $2,000 a month, $480,000. We got it all back, penny for penny. When the final wire transfer cleared, Margaret showed me the notification on her phone. "We did it," she said quietly. "You did it," I corrected. "You worked every day for 20 years to fix your mistake." She looked at me. "We should look at cabins." So we did. Last weekend, we drove up to the mountains and toured a little place on 5 acres. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, a wood stove, and a porch that overlooked a valley. It wasn't the lake house. But standing there with Margaret, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink, I realized something. The lake house had been a dream from when we were young and stupid and thought life was simple. This cabin, this was a dream for who we were now. Older, scarred, wiser, people who knew that marriage wasn't about perfection. It was about choosing to rebuild when things fell apart. "What do you think?" Margaret asked. I put my arm around her shoulder. First time I'd done that in 3 years. "I think we should make an offer. We closed on the cabin 2 months ago. Last weekend, we spent our first night there. Michael and Sarah came up with their families. We cooked dinner together, played with the grandkids, sat around a fire. At one point, Sarah pulled me aside. "You and Mom seem happy." "We are. Different than before, but happy." "I'm proud of you, Dad, for not giving up." I looked over at Margaret, who was showing her grandson how to roast a marshmallow. "Some things are worth fighting for," I said, "even when they disappoint you, especially then." That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Margaret and I sat on the porch. The stars were incredible up here, away from city lights. "Do you remember our honeymoon?" she asked. "When we drove past the lake house the first time?" "I remember. I told you that someday we'd have a place like that. Someday when we were old and retired." "I remember that too." She was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry I took that dream away from us." I thought about my answer. 3 years ago, I would have said something angry. A year ago, I would have deflected. But tonight, sitting here in our cabin that wasn't the lake house but was ours anyway, I said, "You did, but we built a new dream, and maybe that's better." She leaned against my shoulder. "How do you figure?" "Because the lake house was about the destination. This cabin is about the journey. About proving that we can survive anything, even each other." She laughed, soft and real. "That's very philosophical for a retired cop." "I have my moments." We sat there until the fire died down and the night got cold. Then we went inside, to our cabin, to our second chance. I don't know if we'll have another 20 years together. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But I know that whatever time we have, we earned it. We fought for it. We rebuilt it from the ashes of betrayal and broken trust. And sometimes, when I'm sitting on that porch watching the sunset, I think about the man I was 3 years ago. The man who thought his life was over. The man who wanted revenge more than reconciliation. I'm glad I'm not him anymore, because that man would have missed this. The sound of grandkids laughing, the smell of mountain air, the feeling of my wife's hand in mine, after 38 years. He would have won the battle but lost the war. I chose differently. And standing here now, In this life we rebuilt together. I know I made the right choice. Not because it was easy, not because I'm not still angry sometimes, not because the scars have disappeared, but because some things, some people, are worth rebuilding for, even when they break your heart, especially then.